On this channel, I've shown you AI with many tools like Snowflake, Databricks, and DuckDB. However, I had not discussed AI with the cloud warehouse of MotherDuck yet, which takes the speed and flexibility of DuckDB and puts it in the cloud. Today, myself and Alex Monahan, the person who knows all things duck better than almost anyone, are going to sit down and show you exactly how it works and why MotherDuck plus agentic AI is a powerful combo. We will instantly connect Claude Code to MotherDuck, build and shape your data with AI inside of MotherDuck, and then build some of the most impressive data apps in visualizations I've seen on any platform. If you're new here, I'm Kyle. I've got about 10 years of experience in data, and I create content to help educate people on data and AI with a focus on the practical side of things. So today I'm going to be trying something new on the channel. Up to now, it's mostly been me walking you through a tool on my own. And going forward, sometimes I'll bring on the people building the tools I use or want to explore and have them show you what these tools can really do, coming from somebody who knows the AI product combo better than I do. So that's the whole idea. And MotherDuck felt like the perfect place to start. My guest today is Alex Monahan, developer advocate at MotherDuck. Before MotherDuck, Alex spent 9 years at Intel, moving from industrial engineer to data scientist before discovering DuckDB in 2020 and diving all the way in. He's also a DuckLake contributor and co-author of the book DuckLake, The Definitive Guide. I first connected with Alex at the Half Stack conference here in Phoenix and again at AI Council in San Francisco. And today he's walking us through how MotherDuck builds on DuckDB in the cloud and how it plugs into AI coding agents. Also, to state this plainly, this video is not sponsored by MotherDuck and came about because I thought this was a really useful and forward-thinking platform to share with you all, as you will see in the coming minutes. So with that, let's get into it. Alex, welcome to the show. Very excited to have you here. So my first question to you is, what are we going to learn today and why should people want to watch this?
Well, thank you for having me. Well, we're going to learn about how to handle a large amount of data incredibly easily. So how do you pull data from all over, transform it into a shape that you want, and then visualize it to get a real answer? So we think MotherDuck is a really fast way to go from question straight to answer. And so we call ourselves infrastructure for answers. We're that base foundation to really give you the ingredients you need, so your whole company can understand your data.
Awesome. Well, with that introduction, I'd love to have you give a brief introduction on what MotherDuck is, how it relates to DuckDB, sort of the duck ecosystem, if you will, and where you sit within that.
Yes, it's a large lake, lots of ducks swimming in it. So yes, MotherDuck is one of those ducks. We're a venture-backed startup. We're a cloud data warehouse product. So really a central place for you to analyze all of your data. But the key thing about MotherDuck that's really built different is that we're the cloud data warehouse for the rest of us. Cloud data warehouses were built 10 years ago by now, and they were built for the Fortune 100. Do you have over a petabyte of data? Great.
I do not.
There's great tools for that. BigQuery, Snowflake, all those things. And so they're still very, very great, very powerful tools. What we've done is made a deliberate design decision to say, hey, most people don't have that much data. And even if you do, you don't want to query it all at one time because you'll go broke. So what you really want to do is have the right tool for the job. And that means we can be a lot easier to use, but also faster and cheaper. So that kind of combo, sort of like, how can you do that? Well, we sacrifice if you have more than a petabyte of data or more. So we do that by keeping things really isolated and nice. And it's because of DuckDB in a lot of ways that we get that. So MotherDuck's the cloud data warehouse. DuckDB is the engine under the hood. DuckDB is an open source analytical database. So it's really great for analytical questions that look at a lot of rows in your data. So things like, what's the average sales by customer? What's the most popular products by customer? Where I really need to look at all my data to get that answer. It is really the ultimate single player database. Runs anywhere. Runs on your laptop, runs on a big beefy server, runs on a Lambda function, runs in your browser. And so that running everywhere piece means it's a great ingredient. So it's open source, MIT license, use it for whatever you want. I think it's like 10 million downloads a month these days. It's really, really great.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm really excited to have this demo and have you on the channel too, especially because I've covered Snowflake, Databricks. I've covered some of those big industrial data warehouses, right, that have that design capability within it. And I've also covered DuckDB. And I feel like MotherDuck is the missing gap for me here too, which is why I wanted to talk with you, because you're the duck guy. So
Yes. Yes. I didn't wear my duck suit today, but I have some duck paraphernalia, as you might imagine.
yeah, unfortunate.
All good, all good. Well, yeah, we could jump straight into the demo if you'd like.
Yeah, let's do that.
Right. I will share my screen. So what we've realized at MotherDuck is that cloud data warehouse used to be an ingredient. It's one piece of the puzzle and you build a stack around it. So there's this whole term of the modern data stack where you assemble these pieces. And that created a lot of overhead. And in the era of agents, it's still a lot of overhead because your agent doesn't have that full picture to understand what's going on to connect all the pieces. So we've really re-architected around being agent native. So that way with our MCP, you can do anything that you'd want to do on MotherDuck. So the first place to get started, you can hop on our website. This is kind of our overall start, but really we aren't forcing you to use our agent that we host for you. We're meeting you right where you are in your agent already. So all you would be doing to get us set up is to go into, your agent of choice. Here, this is Anthropic's Claude. You can do the same in OpenAI or any of the open source models that support MCP. And you're just connecting up to the right connector. So we're in the marketplace. So if you just search data warehouse, you'll find MotherDuck, and you can go ahead and add our connector there and you're up and running. Our connector is not going to run locally. We host that on your behalf in the cloud. So you have no local setup at all, which makes this really seamless. Our entire sales team uses MotherDuck and they set up our MCP independently. So it's something where really anybody at the whole company can do it because there's no local setup.
And that's a key differentiator from DuckDB, right? Where I know when I've utilized DuckDB, I've utilized it locally with Claude Code too. So all of that's running within my computer. Whereas MotherDuck, it's with you guys.
Yes. And this MCP, it is based on an open source MCP as well. So if you want to run a DuckDB MCP locally, you can. It works great. We just happen to host it on your behalf and make it even more seamless. We find that, there's still folks out there that want some help jumping in, and we want to help them. So that gets you set up in Claude. I tend to work in Claude Code, but it works equally well on any of the Claude surfaces. Before I jump into Claude, I'll show you just the MotherDuck UI at a high level. So we're at app.motherduck.com. You can figure out how to connect up your stack if you do have other existing tools in your warehouse environment. Our visualization component is called Dives. So we have a way of actually building full data apps built into the platform, and it'll build React apps for you without you having to know any React at all. And they'll also be able to execute SQL on your behalf. So we'll see some pretty cool ones there. As a part of getting the data in, oftentimes in my past life at Intel, that was the slowest part, was finding the data and moving it to a central spot. And we have that now where you can just do it straight in an agent, where you can go ahead and it'll run a serverless Python runtime in the cloud. You can pull data from basically wherever you need to, APIs, other databases, files on GitHub, whatever you need. And then once it's there, you can go ahead and manipulate it inside of MotherDuck to transform it, summarize it, aggregate it, and work with it in a notebook. So that's kind of our so it's if you're familiar with Python notebooks, it might look familiar, but it's kind of like a SQL notebook instead of a Python notebook. So you have.
Yeah. For anyone who's utilized Databricks, right, I imagine this will be a very familiar interface to, or any sort of, why am I blanking on the file name? I know the file name, IPYNB.
Jupyter, yes,
thank
yes.
you. A super familiar interface from when I've worked with it.
So we built a really friendly UI for humans, and then we realized, you know what? We also need to build a really friendly UI for agents, and that's where the MCP comes into it. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off just a single prompt that's going to go pull data from the internet. It's going to go ahead and load it in on a schedule, and then after that, it'll visualize it for us in a flight. So I'll talk through the prompt after I kick it off. Here I'm using Opus, really a wide variety of things you could use for this. Usually something on the smarter end of the model spectrum is going to be your best bet.
What is your prompt there? It's about Disney World? Ride wait times? Okay.
Yes. So I just got back from a Disney vacation, and I was looking into this to see what I could do with open data there. So basically, if I'm at Disney, I want to understand, hey, I've got this wait time on the screen. Is that a good deal? Should I get in line or not?
Yeah.
And to do that, I need historical data. What are the lines usually like? And I need live data. What are the lines at, right now? And so it's going to have the pulling in the historical component and kind of looking at that in aggregate. And then we're going to compare it against the real time data.
Cool.
And so
And
we'll
so
let that
was this
simmer.
something that you actually did in Disney too?
I did. While I was in Disney, I was standing in line and I was building an app. So I could show you that as well. But yeah, I went a little crazy with it because it was really fun.
Yeah, some pretty functional use cases for the people out here watching us.
Real world. I'll
Yeah,
probably jump to that.
exactly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, hey, who doesn't want to optimize their wait times though, right?
Man, I'm right there with you for sure. Well, let me show you a couple other dive examples just so you can get a feel for what it looks like when your data warehouse is about answers instead of just kind of the calculation. So this is all about looking at restaurants in New York City and trying to figure out how long are the lines right now. But it does it in a really interesting way. It does it by looking at cameras, open, publicly available cameras that actually look at the restaurants and using machine learning to count how many people are in line and then tell you how long the wait is based on that.
This is really impressive visualization. Like I honestly wasn't expecting this out of MotherDuck. The fact that you can embed something like this customizable inside the interface too. I feel like this is pretty unique.
Right. It's a full React app. And so we have a charting library in there you can use that our MCP knows about that it can build, but anything you can build in React, you can build here. And it's a nice, safe sandbox the way we have it set up as well. So you can have, custom charts where you've got kind of this forecast line in here. It's, looks a lot closer to a publication graphic you'd see than just like a stock chart. Or you could say, hey, what's the best time of day to go for various things? So it's very, very customizable and you can build really a full app. In this case, we're looking at it in the MotherDuck UI. You can also embed this in your own website in an iframe. So you could actually, build this for your end customers, all with just a chat with MotherDuck. So a lot of different ways.
And this is something that you can build via the MCP too, I imagine, right?
Yes. So this is their product feature we call dives. And in our prompt at the beginning here, I said, hey, then visualize that data with a dive. And that's just our term for our data viz feature. And that is chugging away. Let's see what it's up to right now. Hey, it's able to find the APIs I told it about. It's able to go ahead and grab some data. And it's just doing the tests. And soon it will go ahead and decide, hey, I know how to pull from the API. Let me go ahead and get it on a schedule.
And just curious about this feature. Is this something that you've really seen unlocked with, the rise of AI use and agents with MotherDuck in particular? Because I imagine, I don't know if you had this before AI, but there's probably a limited number of users that actually know how to write React, right? Whereas now you can just say, hey, build this out. And I imagine this is something that's getting a lot of usage and a lot of runway from people who now have the capability within MotherDuck to visualize their data like never before.
This was post AI. So we did not have a visualization capability before. Yeah. And what we did in that case is, and we still have this option as well, is we partner with the huge ecosystem out there. So, all the Tableaus and Power BIs of the world, but also the Omnis and the other kind of, newer entrants into that field. But we uniquely recognized, others recognize as well, but like we recognize that AI has changed that industry and made it such that it can build a lot and it doesn't need a large scaffold. This isn't like a drag and drop configuration that we're building. It's a blank canvas. And there's so much React in the training data set of the LLMs. You write really great React code and it really doesn't take a lot of handholding.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a really cool use case too. I'm curious what's one of the most interesting dives that you've seen?
I think a lot of it is around the domain specific ones. So there's some customers that have built, they're in the semiconductor industry, in the design side of chips. And they've built custom visualizations where they can visualize, aspects of the circuit design here, because that doesn't really fit very well on a line chart, but it might fit very well on more of like a a custom visual to their industry. And so they were actually able to take, tens to hundreds of engineers that had previously been asking the data team questions. We're able to show them how to use dives, have a couple central resources around like skills and things to use them well. And then they kind of set their whole organization free to build their own dives such that they could analyze this huge amount of data they had for doing semiconductor design. And that's just an area where we're bringing in, and AI is bringing in folks that aren't traditional data folks. And I think a lot of our role as data folks now is to grow the tent, to invite people in to do data work that haven't been able to do that before.
Yeah. And one other thing too, along those lines, I know in other data tools, I've seen this and there's an argument for it and an argument against it, but write back capabilities too, in terms of, oh, I've designed this and now I want to write it back into a database too. I suppose maybe if it's a React app, right, you could probably build that feature in if you really wanted to.
It's a great question. So today we have this in a sandbox, so that way it can't reach out too broadly on the internet. It reaches out to our server, and our server does the reaching out on your behalf. So to keep that secure, we do, make it secure in that way. To do write back, what we recommend is embedding this in your own app. And what you can do is actually have this communicate with your app to do that write back and forth. So it is absolutely possible today. I've got some demos I built doing that as well. I built a full spreadsheet powered by this, for fun, just to go a little bit crazy with it, because I'm a recovering spreadsheet fan. So there's a lot you could do with it. I think in terms of write back built into the product, we're thinking about how to design that well, and we've got some ideas.
Yeah, and aren't we all recovering spreadsheet people? It's the one
There's a
tool
lot
that
of us.
doesn't die, and for a good reason, to be honest, because it serves its purpose and does it well. And everyone is comfortable with it, right? Which is the biggest reason.
Yes, it was the original data tool for everyone. I think AI is now that, and AI plus spreadsheets is also an interesting combo. But yeah, there's always a good use case for a good spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So we have got, it's writing our flight. So it's writing a Python file. Again, I didn't have to know Python to write this. And it is now, but we do have the ability, if you wanted to manually edit it, you absolutely can. But in this case, we're letting the agent kind of take the wheel in the demo mode here, but you can absolutely make custom edits for sure. And so it's going to be pulling in that data now that it's kind of tested that it understands all the APIs that it has available to it. So while that's doing it, I could show you a couple other examples of things that you can build with this. And really, and I can also show the flights UI as well, so we can understand a little bit about the Python side. So here's another visual where it's using a custom globe visual as opposed to just a regular chart. And this is looking at earthquakes over time across the world. So that way you could actually go see, hey, what earthquakes are happening when. I could do filters to say, hey, I really want to look at just the big ones. You'll see a lot less of those are happening, but a lot of different ways you can slice and dice it. But this is something where having a full app has benefits over having just compartmentalized components. That being said, you do still have the full kind of more traditional dashboard stuff available to you. You can build any drill down you want, any kind of, zoom in, zoom out, highlight, cross filter, all that type of stuff as well. That just happens to be easier to build. So it wasn't the first thing I demoed, but this is absolutely a core part of how people use the tool as well as this kind of more traditional use case.
Yeah. And what you're showing here too is really interesting because I feel like it's a larger trend. What I've seen in some of the other data warehouses to big data companies like Databricks and Snowflake, where one of the biggest value adds is you have all your data in one place, right? And so then why can't you connect your AI tools to also visualize it in that place, also do all your analysis and just have everything, writing out to that or calling that external tool to be able to do it in a singular place, right? Which is some of the potential downside for the traditional BI tools, right? That have always been external to your data warehouse, like connecting your Snowflake to your Tableau or connecting something else to Power BI. Whereas having it all in one interface like this is definitely what I see as the way of the future. And I think every single data warehousing company is moving towards this direction. And you guys have clearly done it very well.
I think there's absolutely a trend for that. I think the good thing is, though, that you have options in either direction. So we have kind of these first party tools for flights and dives, but we also integrate with the whole ecosystem. So if you'd like to use Airflow, you can. If you'd like to, use Iceberg as your data set and then just use MotherDuck as your query engine on top of Iceberg. We just launched Iceberg support last week. So there is absolutely the ability to do the puzzle piece construction. And I think you see that tends to be helpful oftentimes at a certain scale. If I'm a very large company, it does make sense where some workloads I run on a Snowflake, other things I run on a MotherDuck. And we do see that at times. We could tend to be really good at that low latency use case, whereas Snowflake might be really good at the, giant batch job, repartition your data type of use case. So there are places where they do work well together. And then likewise for the visuals as well, it does help a lot to be able to have one visual tool that can talk to everything. The way we're kind of approaching that a little bit is making it very easy to move data into MotherDuck's. That's kind of the flight side, is to make it more of a general purpose visual tool by having more of your data in there.
Yeah. And I don't know if you'd prepared this too, but do you want to talk about flights?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Thank you. So flights are a feature we launched fairly recently, and it's an isolated sandbox environment for running Python scripts in a serverless manner. But in much the way that dives are more than a charting capability, flights are more than just a Python scripting capability. We're basically giving you full access to the whole machine. So you can install any Linux package you want, any Python package you want. There's no defined list you have to choose from. Whatever package on the whole internet, download anything you want from GitHub, hit any API. Really, it's very much a sandbox you can build anything in. So for example, this is a flight that's been written while we've been talking here. You can see the logs of how it's running. We're pulling in data for all the various rides in Disney. We've got our Buzz Lightyears here. We got our Pirates of the Caribbean, all the good stuff. You can see it failed the first time. Agent made a mistake, and it was able to read the logs and understand, hey, DuckDB has the best error messages in the business. It says, hey, this function doesn't match. You might need to add a cast. And that's exactly all you need to do that. So it already gives the answer back, and that's why it succeeded the second time. But really, what is a flight? It's a set of requirements, what Python libraries you want. It's a config. In this case, it didn't use a config, but this is basically just environment variables you want to pass in. Mm-hmm. And then a Python script. So you can see here.
Just a standard data loading job, essentially, right? Or can be thought of as that too. Obviously with more features, but to dumb it down a little bit for myself.
I think that is the number one use case. I think that is absolutely the core. The other use cases are around maybe orchestrating transformations for data that's already there. So using a scheduled job, if I wanted to reprocess my data after I load it, for example. So that's another kind of core workload. And then, we also see it for, any kind of other pre-computation you'd want to do. You could do that.
Yeah. And I love the error logs there too, because that just reflects the AI native architecture, right? Too, in terms of, hey, you might want to try this, which is helpful for humans, right? I imagine if you're a human diagnosing the error here too, that's extremely helpful. But it's almost like it's giving a prompt inside the error log saying, hey, here's what you might want to try next to correct yourself.
Yes, and DuckDB's error messages really were designed for humans, but they're great for agents. It's really one of those win-wins. Yeah, in this case, the other fun thing is that all of the metadata about this can be pulled with SQL queries. So you can say, give me the Python script with a select statement. Say, select star from, flights of this ID, and it'll actually return it back to you in SQL. So that's how our MCP is able to fully have visibility to this as well, as it all goes through the SQL layer. We've got the dive renders great, so we might have something to look at already with our visual that's been building in the background. So let's look at all dives. We'll look at the last updated. Let's see. This one was just updated. We'll see if that's the one it just created. It might be one that I built previously. I think this is one I built previously, but similar idea where we're looking at the rides to see which one's a good deal. So even though it's an hour to wait for the Slinky Dog, that's still better than average. So maybe consider hopping on, even though there's a long wait, type of thing.
And just curious to dig in a little bit on the data component here. So when you say better than average, so this is an application that is pulling real time data, right, and has historical data for all of these different rides. And is this Walt Disney World or Land?
This is Disney World. Yep, went to the
Nice.
Florida one.
In Walt Disney World, and it's going to continuously update now that you've created this too. And so this is something that is just an ongoing job, and all you had to do is give it that single prompt, and now it's going to one shot.
And we'll see the proofs in the pudding. We'll look at that one as soon as it's done. But yes, that's exactly right. So it'll run on an ongoing cadence, and then whenever you load the page, it'll run the live queries at that point to go pull in the live data off the API. So that's, in this visual, it's a little bit tiny font, but this is saying that, hey, right now, Disney is disclosing that there's a 1 hour wait on this particular ride. And then looking at the average, over time, that is, typically the median is 80 minutes. So you're saving 20 minutes if you hop in line before long.
You just got to run there wherever you are in the park.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that is probably a decent segue into like the goofy app that I built while I was in line over the course of a couple of days. So I had a lot of fun with this, probably too much fun, but it's set up where you can take a look at not only just a list of rides, but you can also look at it from a satellite view or a street view. And then you can even set up a schedule for yourself. So I think I set up a schedule for yesterday. So that schedule will actually look at the historical wait times and give you an estimate of how long you're standing in line. And then it'll even do turn-by-turn directions in between your rides, so you know how long it takes to walk there. And it'll pull that on the fly. It'll do radar to tell you, how far away the thunderstorm is and where's the nearest lightning strike. So that way you know if the rides are about to shut down. You got to get on the roller coasters real soon, type of deal. And it's kind of that full app style where, we're popping up modals to pick out exactly how we want to set up our schedule. We can move things around, and we can, pan and zoom around in a map.
Nice.
So
it's token maxing to ride max, right? So
vacation maxing. Yes.
Vacation maxing. Yeah. Which, yeah, I can hear, I don't know if my 7-month-old has been screaming a lot outside my door too. So that's probably been picked up on my mic, but I think he's screaming in excitement for this potentially being utilized in his future too. So
that's the spirit. Yes. The era of personal software is here. You can make, this is software I made for a week of use at Disney, right? And it'll be a little while till I'm back, but it's a different time, which is really fun.
Really cool.
So it's really kind of one of those things where, traditionally people were looking at data warehouses for a certain purpose. We think that purpose has really gotten stretched out a lot. And, but also the core thing is it really has to be fast. It has to be cost efficient. And so this is something that we add on top of that, but that foundation is also pretty key.
Yeah. It really seems like this is built for the future of work, right? Where, previously in human-based data work, right? I found it very much dependent upon your organization, right? Obviously, smaller company down, the smaller company it is, then it's less so like this, but divided into different departments and different functions where you had your business intelligence, you had your software engineers, you had your data engineers, any number of roles in between that. And here you're able to play all of those roles, right, to different capacities in terms of creating your own app, building out your own data pipelines, preparing your data to be consumed by data visualizations, all by just connecting, Claude with the MotherDuck MCP and giving it a prompt and saying, hey, please do this.
Yes. And I think that's an area where we think things are evolving. There is definitely still a need of the people that have the information about where the bodies are buried, right? But they know the history of the organization. They know the history of the data. I think there's still tremendous value in that. I think where I see the great potential is allowing those folks to scale their impact by kind of disseminating that knowledge in a way they couldn't before. Where before it was all kind of trapped in their head or in a document that hadn't been updated for a year that you still had to know how to install everything to use. Now you can build up a central set of context. You can train folks how to use these really approachable tools. And And now as the data person, you can kind of be a leader of the whole company, where now the whole company is going to make better choices because of the underlying maybe more infrastructure style investment that you make. So if you're an analyst perspective, yes, the analysis you do is critical. You want to make the right corporate decisions. But if you as an analyst can train your company to be a company of analysts, that's a
Yeah.
really cool opportunity.
Yeah, definitely is.
So we've got our new dive. So this is what was built live for us while we were chatting. And it looks very different than what we just looked at. Interesting. So, hey, is now a good deal. We got the M dash in the title. Oh, brutal. Step 0 M dash. Gotta love it. Well, let's pull in our live data. How many rides are open? How many are a good deal? So we've got the various parks. So which ones are a good deal now? It has, in this case, a nicer visual, in my opinion. I really like box plots and then full distribution here. That's pretty nice, just to see exactly how each one looks. So Space Mountain, yeah, it's pretty messy there, but yeah, that's pretty clean. And slice and dice to whichever park you're looking at. And that was one prompt. Again, most of the time with this workflow, we recommend a little bit different. So kind of step one for us is usually build us some context, like ask it to do some research and run some SQL statements just to get an idea of what's there. And then after you've kind of built up that context, then you could say, hey, now I want you to run this different processing pipeline. Now I want you to visualize it in this way. And typically it's not a one shot. I'm going to do things like say, make the font bigger. This gray, it's really hard to read. There's is always an iterative process for anything real. And it was really a small icon in the corner, but that's a Dive app that I built previously. I'm looking at a different version of it. I built 61 different versions of it over time.
Wow.
Because just every turn of the model, it's committing to Git and it's pushing up to to the Dive. So it's not just a one shot thing as well. You can also really build like a robust app over time by iterating with it.
That makes sense. And just to clarify that point too, you have this connected to a GitHub repository, right? Where it's writing out this code. And then is that code connected to MotherDuck, or is this living directly inside MotherDuck?
It is living directly inside MotherDuck, and we store the full change history for you. You can optionally use Git alongside it as well, because this is just an agent working with it. So you can have it be working in a repo while you're working with Claude Code. And that's usually how I recommend it. We also have a process internally that we're using that we call blessed dives. So like the dives that go to the board of directors, those have a PR approval process. And then as a part of the GitHub Action workflow, we redeploy it to MotherDuck. And that deployment step is just running a SQL statement, of like call update flight. So it's nothing too complicated, but we do like using the GitHub workflow with it as well.
Makes a lot of sense, and blessed. I like that terminology there too. And yeah, for anyone who's watched my YouTube videos before too, the one shot was definitely a joke, because you'll see on some of the videos I make, it is not from one shot, right? And that's the reality, right? As you talk about when it comes to working with this, right? It's an iterative process, and then prompting to iterate to refine ultimately your product too. So you might end up with an app that took you 60 plus versions to get there, but hey, now it works to your liking.
Yes, absolutely. And there's definitely always that iteration. We do also have some other tools that make it extra easy as well. So if you're in like the Claude web UI, it's working entirely with our MCP. But our MCP, if you're in a Claude Code or a Codex environment, it actually has a prompt there that describes how to build a preview server locally. And it'll actually kick off just a JavaScript preview server. It can even install Node for you if you've never installed Node before. It'll install all the packages that you need, and it'll have a live, hot reloading page that you can use to iterate really, really quickly on these dives too. So we're definitely leaning into that fast iteration mindset, because that's how we make good progress, is making the best use of our limited human time to review what the model has done.
Awesome. Yeah. And so I think that's a good takeaway for people watching. When you come to this, right, you don't necessarily need to come with the knowledge, right, but come with the data and knowing what you need to analyze, and then you can get moving with MotherDuck from there too. So as we wrap up, Alex, I first want to ask you, anything exciting on the horizon for MotherDuck too, or anything you personally want to plug while I have you here?
There's a lot of exciting things. One technology we haven't talked about a lot that is a feature of MotherDuck that's also an open source project is something called DuckLake. So if you've heard of Apache Iceberg is one table lakehouse format. It's a real good way to store like tens of terabytes of data in a very open way where you can use different engines on top of it. DuckLake is the same way, but it's designed, with 10 years of hindsight from Iceberg, and it's much simpler. So you actually set it up on your laptop in like 2 commands. It's pretty wild. And so that's one thing that's worth looking at if you have that kind of larger data set use case, or you have that multi-engine use case where you want to use a couple of different databases with something. The other thing that we're continuing to think about at MotherDuck is really all around managing knowledge and context.
Mm.
So there's a lot of
Sure.
things still trapped in our brains, and things also that are trapped in my personal Claude history on my machine. And if we want our whole organization to be a learning organization, we want to be able to find a way to all curate some sort of central knowledge repository. So we're thinking a lot about that at MotherDuck, how we can help power that or help make that a lot easier.
Awesome. And last question for you. What's some way you utilize AI in your day to day that you've gotten a lot of value out of that you maybe would share with others to try out and maybe get that same value out of it?
I think there's probably 2 things, and it's because, there's a spectrum of people of various things, but I tend to fall a little bit more on the like pie in the sky ideology, wouldn't it be cool if person. And I find AI to be really cool to just like do a prototype of that crazy idea. So like, what if we could, change the architecture of how DuckLake works and do it a different way, in a way that, would take a lot of code changes to do. But I'm able to work with AI to do like a back of the envelope estimation of like, if we were to do this, what's the potential benefit? And explore, these are the 5 design choices in the design space. What are the trade-offs between those? So I use it a lot as like an architectural design partner for those kind of pie in the sky, wouldn't it be cool if projects. The second thing is, I'm started as a SQL jockey, moved into being a Pythonista, and I like to call myself a reluctant JavaScript developer. I'll use front end stuff if I have to. Now I'm writing C++ code to contribute back to the DuckDB ecosystem, which it's written in C++ because that's the full speed performance that they need as a database engine. And I don't think I could have done it at the same scale without AI. So that's been a real unlock for me, is how do I take my domain expertise around, just being a database geek at this point and knowing what I want the system to do, how can I bend C++ to my will and get it to do what I want? And so I've been able to write, 500 lines of C++ and contribute it back to DuckLake and have it actually be a PR that's accepted. Whereas before that would have really been out of reach. So if there's a language that you have never used before and a project that you really want to be better, you can do that now. And so give it a try.
Good advice. Good advice to end on. Well, check out MotherDuck, check out DuckLake, check out DuckDB. And Alex, thank you so much for chatting with me today and sharing this really helpful knowledge with people who are interested in data and AI.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me. Quack on and prosper.
No better way to end than that. All right. All right. Thanks so much.